what used to be middle schools and early college, because we chose never again should this school be on Nightline and children going into a school that was in chaos. Last year, 100% of the graduating seniors of that school not only graduated and was headed to college, but walked out with an associate's degree. That's transformative. That's showing up before you're asked to show up. That's showing up because there's an issue to show up. James Mejia talked about parents and accountability. If we start this conversation about turning around failing schools and about our education system solely on the shoulders of teachers, we have absolutely missed the boat. It is about parents being held accountable. It's about community members being held accountable. It's about principals and administrators being held accountable. It's about Tom Boasberg being held accountable. It's about board members being held accountable, the business community, the universities, all of us being held accountable because we're all ultimately responsible for our schools. So I absolutely agree with James. To Carol Boigon, I also agree with her about segregating or creating opportunities for where we find failing schools as the next mayor, maybe creating a mayor zone of innovation. I partnered with Senator Peter Groff, former Senator Peter Groff, to write the Innovation Schools Act of 2008, because we wanted to segregate those schools who wanted to try innovation and try something different, who created a partnership within their walls between the administration and teachers. Bruce Randolph was the first school to opt in. That's why President Obama called it out during his State of the City address. Folks, that's transformative. They are a school of innovation, and they were the first ones to take advantage of that bill. But I do got to tell you, I disagree with Carol Boigon on one thing, and I know my time is up. And I love Carol. But saying it's not the mayor's issue is an old paradigm that simply doesn't work anymore. I was standing in a hotel in Tokyo, Japan, and I'll never forget a Tokyo businessman walking up to me and saying, we're not bringing our business to Denver because your schools can't compete. Folks, there isn't a thing the mayor touches, economic development, crime, quality of life in our city that does not have a quality, world-class education as its foundation. And so the next mayor better be serious about partnering with DPS to turn failing schools around and make sure that every child is educated, and we stand in the gap so that every family, every child has access to a quality school.
Thank you. And our last wrap up before we hear from one of our sponsor organizations, Carol Boigon.
Thank you. And so of course I have to respond to this conversation. And let me be very clear. You know, I've spent my life working in the Denver Public Schools as a parent, as a member of the CDM, for Mayor Webb, for Governor Romer, where I was the press person on all of his children's initiatives and worked closely with the schools and was part of the thinking that went into creating collaborative decision-making committees. And I'm a teacher and a parent and a mother. So I take this very seriously, but I also believe there are good reasons that mayors don't take over schools. When you look at what happened in Chicago, there were failing schools, horrible situation, and terrible school-by-school corruption. I don't think anybody sees that here. And in the end, when you look at the test scores coming out of Chicago, after all of that work, yes, the schools are better managed, but they changed the test to move the test scores. So it's not as if child outcomes were improved. So to take the risk of an independent curriculum, real science, real math, and put it on that slippery slope to falling under general purpose government, I promise you in Colorado, you could have many schools giving up real science. I think that's a great risk. So a partnership with the schools, absolutely. Help for the schools where we can, absolutely. Every single idea people have proposed up here, I have worked on. Some of them work, some of them could be done better, but we have Denver Preschool Program, we have Denver Head Start, we have longitudinal evaluation for our preschool kids through DPS. I have built those programs and I support them to this day. But it's very important for us to understand that, as Jefferson taught us, education is the foundation of this democracy, and the reason we educate every child is that they can be their own guardians of their own freedom. And therefore, the failure to educate every child puts us all at risk. So this is a large conversation, and I pledge to be a good partner to the Denver Public Schools. I pledge to look out for the children of this city, to make sure they are all educated, but not to take over the Denver Public Schools, to usurp the rights of the independently elected school board members to choose their superintendent and to choose their direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay put, we're not quite done yet, but we wanted to say thanks to all 6 of you for being here tonight, for sharing and engaging in what was clearly a very insightful and thoughtful, interesting discussion here about our schools going forward. And thank you also for doing what you're doing and for running for this job. Please join me in thanking our 6 candidates on stage tonight. And also join me in now welcoming to the stage from one of our sponsoring groups, Education Reform Now, Van Scholes, the Executive Director. You just gonna talk right here? All right.
Hi, thanks again, all of you. I thought it was a fantastic forum, got some great ideas out with not a lot of time. So thanks again, all the candidates. I also want to thank our great moderators. Cynthia Hessin from Rocky Mountain Rocky Mountain PBS, my apologies. Right. And Eli Stokols from Fox 31 News. Great job. I also want to put in a plug for all the other sponsoring organizations, from Democrats for Education Reform, the Colorado League of Charter Schools, Colorado Stand for Children, the Colorado Children's Campaign, and then our main sponsor, which was Get Smart Schools. All of these organizations are working hard on behalf of improving the quality of education for Denver and, in many cases, all of Colorado's kids. And I'd invite you all, if you're not involved in these organizations, answers at educationreformnow.org as well as at getsmartschools.org. If any of you are interested, we decided to save paper and not print them all here. Denver, the next May, remind most of you that half the kids that enter school in Denver at the 9th grade don't graduate. And I also don't need to remind you that most of the kids that do graduate and do get a high school degree, most of those kids need remediation if and when they go on to college. All of us that are involved in this think that is totally unacceptable. And that's why we're called Education Reform Now. It's about urgency. So I would invite all of you to take a close look at these candidates' positions, and I'd also encourage you to ask them more questions and have more conversation. This is just the start. Thanks again for coming, and have a great night.